Welcome everyone. Is the microphone? Can you hear me? Yes. Good morning. Welcome everyone to the presentation of the priorities and the official program of the incoming Belgian presidency of the Council of the European Union, which starts in a few weeks. Allow me to welcome Prime Minister Alexander de Croo and Foreign Minister and Minister of European Affairs and Foreign Trade Hadja Lahbib. They will reveal the priorities and the official agenda of the Belgian presidency, so hold on tight. But first, a flashback.
Belgium has held the presidency of the Council of the European Union at pivotal times in our history. Over the years, the peace and prosperity brought by Europe have become ever so clear. With the war in Ukraine and the global pandemic, that also increases citizens' expectations and the need to deliver. Delivering is our goal. Good morning, everyone, and welcome here in Brussels. It's an exciting moment for Hadja and myself to have you here and to present you our priorities for the incoming presidency. As you know, we Belgians, we have the European Union in our DNA. As much as the name of Hadja already disappeared. As I said, we have the European Union in our DNA. We have the capital of the European Union that is here, so many European institutions that are here. If there is one country that embodies and the diversity and the dynamism that the European Union is today, I think it is Belgium. We will be at the helm of the European Union for 6 months. It is a true honor to be in that situation. We know that it is also a responsibility. A responsibility to deliver, and a responsibility to deliver to the concerns and the interests of all EU citizens. No one will deny that these are challenging times. And the evolution of the European Union has never been a straight line. But it is often in the most challenging times that the greatest steps forward have been made. Today, we could not imagine a life without the euro, without the single market, without the free movement of people, without the Lisbon Treaty. Today, we live, we pay, we connect, we study, we conduct business in 27 countries as it actually were only one country. But the past years have been a rude awakening. We have a horrific war on the European continent. We have a terrible war happening in the Middle East. And if we look at the atrocities that human beings inflict on each other, we could only be in a situation where we know that we have a responsibility to play. We will continue to emphasize the values of dignity. We will continue to plead for the respect of human rights. Over the past years, the pandemic and the economic crisis and the energy crisis have really tested the Union. But I think we showed that if the Union is truly a union, being unified, that we can deliver for our citizens. But we also understand that today our citizens are looking for certainty. Our citizens are looking for perspective. And for that certainty and for that perspective, they are looking at the European Union. Up to us to respond to that very legitimate expectation of certainty and of perspective. And that really has been the guiding elements of the agenda for our presidency. And I really would like to synthesize it in 3 phrases. First of all, protect our people. Secondly, strengthen our economy. And third element, prepare for our shared future. How will we do that? Well, let me first start by protecting our people. Protecting our people means ensuring the security and the well-being of all European citizens. This means protecting our borders, strengthening our social and our health agenda, preserving Europe's unity in protecting and in supporting Ukraine. The second line, strengthening our economy, we urgently need to enhance the EU's competitiveness on the global stage. And at the same time, deliver on the green, the digital, and the just transition. Third line, preparing our future. The European Union needs to cater to our citizens. And the exercise we need to do is the EU and its institutions and its functioning today fit for that future? We will have to reform the Union, its policies, its budgets, its institutions in the view of a possible future enlargement. Let it be clear, we stand ready to deliver in this presidency. And let me start, first of all, with the legislative agenda. The Spanish presidency has and still is making great strides, and we will continue the excellent work that our Spanish colleagues have and are still conducting. We know that there is approximately 150 files which are on the table. We will prioritize them, and we will do that, of course, together with our colleagues, and based on those priorities, we will continue the excellent work that has been done. 150 files is a lot, but we Belgians are used to work in overtime and to deliver in overtime. Second element, next to the legislative agenda, is to support the discussions on the strategic agenda. What type of union do you want to be in 2029? What are the priorities that we need to act on, and how do we adapt on that? Third element, and I would say finally, is make the agenda and prioritize the internal reforms which are necessary to maintain a functioning union and to be able to act decisively in the interests of all Europeans. Any reforms, they will have to strengthen the unity and our capacity to act in unity. So, to conclude, we have no time to waste. The expectancy on the Belgian presidency is that we deliver, and that is what we are going to do. And let me maybe now take some time to explain you the official logo of the Belgian presidency. As I said, Belgium is at a crossroads. You see that in the logo, because the logo, if you look at it, has a perfect angle and is a perfect symbol of a crossroad. The emphasis on the logo is on the EU. The font for Belgium is a bit smaller and a bit less bold than the EU, and it underscores our priority. Our priority is to deliver for Europe. We as Belgians want to deliver for a European Union and to make that European Union stronger for all European citizens. Our priority is with all the European citizens. The color of blue, of course, is the defining color of the European Union. The color of yellow is the color that connects all the entities in Belgium. Now, maybe only the Belgian journalists will know about this, but if you look at all the symbols and all the flags that you have of all different Belgian entities, in any of these flags, you will always find the color of yellow. So the symbolism of Europe, the yellow is connecting Belgium. Of course, yellow is also the other color in the European flag. So what you expect from us is to deliver on strengthening the European Union, to deliver on decisiveness, to deliver on the unity. This is what citizens expect from us. This is what we will do. This is the effort we will put for 100% in delivering on that. And I would like to invite you to take another look.
Ik ben heel erg trots op Europa. Dat je daar vrij kan reizen en kan werken in een waanzinnig groot gebied met één munt. Dat is fantastisch.
Les côtés positifs de l'Europe, pour moi, c'est surtout une partie de la politique pour la jeunesse. Donc je pense par exemple au programme Erasmus. Et également aussi la possibilité, quand on est jeune, de pouvoir voyager à travers l'Europe sans frontières. C'est un côté énormément positif à l'Union européenne.
Pour moi, l'Europe, c'est un peu un lien entre tous les différents pays qu'on a. C'est aussi plus facile parce qu'il n'y a qu'une seule monnaie. Donc quand on voyage, on ne doit pas changer. C'est des programmes d'évolution, que ce soit en Belgique ou à l'étranger. C'est pour les étudiants, comme le programme Erasmus, etc. C'est en général pas mal de choses positives.
Europa betekent voor mij een gedeelde cultuur, een gedeelde geschiedenis van cultuur. Toneelstukken, opera's, klassieke muziek.
Ce qui m'inspire le plus, c'est le fait qu'il y ait une si grande diversité en Europe et que ce soit aussi simple de pouvoir connaître des gens de plein de nationalités, de pays différents. Et aussi le climat et ce que l'Europe essaye de faire pour une transition écologique.
Europa betekent voor mij heel veel mogelijkheden. Vrij verkeer, vrije handel.
Europa is een plekje waar ik me toch wel veilig kan voelen. Persoonlijk is dat ook zoiets van, hoe moet ik het zeggen, de mogelijkheden die je hier hebt om te groeien. Als je maar de juiste papieren hebt, om het zo te zeggen, krijg je ook de kansen om er te komen. Dus voor mij is het wel een plek waar ik graag ben.
Donc pour moi, l'Europe, c'est l'ouverture des pays, les voyages, Espagne, Italie, au soleil, au froid aussi. Le pays du Père Noël, puisque c'est l'époque.
For me, Europe is a very different experience. It's something new. It's very exciting, and it's very cold.
For me, Europe's like a very diverse place. It's a lot more different from Australia, and it's cool, like different experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things we need to solve is climate.
Climate.
It's too cold in Brussels.
Yes, but indeed, how great is it to hear that Europe is cool? And I'm sure it's not only about the weather. I think it's more about the expectations of young citizens. It means also that Europe matters to them, that they have high hopes for our Europe. And it is our duty to answer. It is in fact rather reassuring that these expectations indeed are perfectly aligned with the founding principles of the European Union as a project of peace and prosperity. The European Union must, more than ever, fulfill this role and strengthen its cornerstone. We will have to build a Europe where we work together to protect our security, to protect our citizens, our values and our economy. A Europe ready to face future challenges, geopolitical, environmental and demographic. That's why we adopt the motto protect, strengthen and prepare. It is in this spirit that we are going to work in the next 6 months. Effectivement, nous vivons un moment charnière de notre histoire. Les défis, vous le savez, sont immenses. 2 guerres à nos frontières, des tensions géopolitiques accrues et la nécessaire transition durable de notre économie. De nombreux défis et un timing serré, puisque nous sommes, vous le savez aussi, à la fin du mandat européen et la Commission européenne. Donc ce contexte particulier donne à notre présidence une double mission. La première, finaliser un maximum le travail législatif en cours. Il y a donc, vous l'avez entendu, à peu près 150 règles à finaliser. Le deuxième, évidemment, préparer l'avenir. Il y a tout d'abord l'agenda stratégique 2024-2029 qu'Alexander vient d'évoquer. C'est une mission importante car il s'agit en fait de jeter les bases de l'Union à venir. Et nous avons évidemment la volonté de faire de cette présidence un succès collectif pour la Belgique, pour l'Europe, pour nos citoyens et pour la place de l'Union européenne aussi dans le monde. Et pour y parvenir, nous avons organisé notre présidence autour de 6 thématiques qui découlent en fait donc des 3 mots-clés, protéger, renforcer et prévoir. Je vais les parcourir rapidement avec vous, mais vous trouverez tous les détails dans le programme que vous allez recevoir ou que vous avez déjà reçu. Donc, premièrement, protéger la démocratie, l'état de droit et nos valeurs. C'est l'ADN de l'Union européenne, les fondations sur lesquelles nous avons construit le projet européen. Nous devons les défendre et les renforcer. Nous chercherons à améliorer l'efficacité des outils qui existent pour garantir le respect, comme le dialogue de l'État de droit, l'article 7, ou encore le mécanisme de conditionnalité. Deuxièmement, protéger nos citoyens et nos frontières. La migration, vous le savez, est une préoccupation majeure pour les Européens. Nous espérons que la présidence espagnole pourra aboutir sur les dossiers législatifs liés au pacte asile et migration. Les trilogues sont en cours et le travail se poursuit. Le pacte doit renforcer la confiance, la solidarité aussi entre les États membres et améliorer la gestion de la migration pour une gestion plus responsable mais aussi plus humaine. Nous aurons également une attention particulière pour la lutte contre la criminalité organisée et la prévention de la lutte contre le terrorisme. Alors en ce qui concerne la défense, il s'agira de consolider la base technologique et industrielle européenne de la défense. Troisièmement, renforcer notre économie et notre compétitivité. Nous avons parmi nos entreprises des leaders mondiaux, innovants, résilients, et ces entreprises doivent le rester, être capables d'être concurrentielles sur le marché extérieur et d'opérer également de manière équitable sur le marché intérieur. Nous accorderons donc une attention particulière à 2 rapports qui vont être remis pendant notre présidence. Le rapport L'État sur l'avenir du marché unique et le rapport Draghi sur notre compétitivité. En nu, wir Europa versterken tot een sociaal en gezond Europa, waarbij we de nadruk leggen op een stevige sociale agenda, gebaseerd op de Europese pijler van sociale rechten. Naast het wetgevende werk zullen we samen met de commissie op Val-Duchesse een top met de Europese sociale partners organiseren. En we willen de gezondheidsunie sterker maken, een thema dat sinds corona alleen maar belangrijker is. 5. Onze toekomst voorbereiden met een groene transitie. De grote uitdagingen van onze generatie is onze economie duurzaam maken. In ons voorzitterschap focussen we op een eerlijke transitie, adaptatie en veerkracht en de circulaire economie. Er liggen nog veel wetgevende dossiers op tafel en we gaan hard werken om deze af te ronden. 6. Préparer l'Europe de demain, une Europe globale. La guerre en Ukraine continuera évidemment à occuper une place importante dans notre agenda. Nous devons continuer d'aider le peuple ukrainien aussi longtemps qu'il le faudra. Il y a aussi la situation au Moyen-Orient où la souffrance des populations civiles atteint des seuils insupportables, dramatiques. Cela nous préoccupe tous les jours. La désescalade et le respect total du droit humanitaire international sont plus que jamais nécessaires, ainsi que la relance, bien sûr, des négociations pour une paix durable, avec au bout une solution à 2 États. Enfin, il nous faut renforcer nos relations avec nos partenaires commerciaux. En ce compris et surtout l'Afrique, nous voulons avancer sur la stratégie Global Gateway, la facilité européenne pour la paix et la mise en œuvre de l'accord de Samoa ou l'accord post-Cotonou. Enfin, Alexander l'a évoqué, comme thème transversal, nous penserons évidemment aujourd'hui l'Europe de demain. L'Union doit renforcer ses fondations et donc se réformer. Cela passe par la recherche de meilleurs financements de notre Union européenne, une plus grande efficacité aussi de nos processus de prise de décision pour être plus agiles. Et parallèlement, évidemment, les pays candidats à l'Union européenne devront mener les réformes nécessaires pour une possible future intégration. Et à propos de l'élargissement, les orientations du Conseil européen de décembre définiront évidemment la marche à suivre. Alors peut-être pour conclure, quelques thématiques qui me seront propres. J'aurai un rôle évidemment de coordination générale de la présidence, une coordination qui ne serait pas possible aussi sans la mobilisation de toutes celles et ceux qui sont mobilisés pour la présidence. Et je vous assure, c'est un véritable travail collectif et je tiens d'ailleurs à les remercier. Ils font vraiment un travail extraordinaire. Je sais qu'il y en a quelques-uns dans la salle, donc bravo à eux. Et puis, je participerai à 3 conseils en particulier. Tout d'abord, en tant que ministre des Affaires étrangères, je soutiendrai bien sûr le haut représentant Josep Borrell lors du Conseil Affaires étrangères. Fin janvier, donc les 31 et 1er février, il y aura lors du Gimnich un conseil informel où je mettrai l'accent sur l'Afrique avec un dîner qui sera organisé au musée de l'Afrique. L'objectif, eh bien, ce sera de se pencher sur nos relations avec le continent, de continent à continent, et en particulier sur les engagements pris lors de la dernière ministérielle Union africaine-Union européenne qui a eu lieu en 2022. En tant que ministre des Affaires européennes, je présiderai le Conseil Affaires Générales. Alors, un événement important sera en fait l'anniversaire des 20 ans du premier tout grand élargissement de l'Union européenne. C'était 2004. Et donc, à cette occasion, j'inviterai les pays qui sont candidats à l'adhésion à l'Union européenne à participer à un conseil informel qui sera consacré aussi à nos fondamentaux, aux valeurs principales de l'Union européenne, donc valeurs démocratiques et état de droit. Ce sera évidemment l'occasion aussi de regarder dans le rétroviseur et de nous projeter vers l'avenir. Enfin, en tant que ministre du Commerce extérieur, cette fois je présiderai également donc le Conseil Commerce extérieur, où j'organiserai une informelle en présence de la directrice, le docteur Ngozi, donc directrice de l'OMC. Et là, on aura un rôle important à jouer pour préparer la 13e conférence ministérielle de l'OMC de fin février. Ce sera également l'occasion d'organiser des débats sur l'autonomie stratégique ouverte et la sécurité économique. Voilà, now you know almost everything. As I already mentioned, you can find all the detailed information on our website that will go live in a few minutes, 11:15 exactly. I don't know what time is it right now. And I also want to take this opportunity to draw your attention to the Presidency's WhatsApp channel. EU 2024 BE. This is a first in a presidency's communication. You just have to scan this big QR code and the channel will feed you with a stream of real-time information over the next 6 months. I would like to say subscribe now. We have some busy months ahead on us, important months for Europe, but Belgium is ready. See you in January.
Ich denke, es ist wichtig, dass die nationalen Regierungen auf jeden Fall miteinander arbeiten müssen und sprechen müssen, um die größeren Fragen zu klären und ein gemeinsames Ziel zu finden und halt sicherzustellen, dass jeder er selbst sein kann. Finde ich wichtig und ich hoffe, dass es auch weiter daran gearbeitet wird, dass das bestehen bleibt und dass man einfach man selbst sein kann.
L'Europe, c'est pour moi avant tout un continent géographique, mais c'est aussi une réussite de pays qui s'entendent ensemble. Et du coup, la fin des guerres internes, on va dire, à ce continent. L'Europe, c'est une dimension économique et ce sont des espoirs d'un point de vue social et environnemental. Parce que je pense que sur la scène internationale, on est plus fort ensemble. Donc je me réjouis de ce travail de délibération qui permettent d'avoir un message plus fort, unifié.
Ik vind het goed dat we in Europa samenwerken rond klimaat. Klimaat is niet een probleem dat je in je eentje kan oplossen. Daar zullen we met z'n allen samen voor moeten werken. En daar heeft Europa zeker een taak.
L'Europe au niveau de la santé, je pense que ça a aidé pas mal de pays à développer leur système de soins de santé. Enfin, moi je viens d'une famille dont une partie est roumaine à la base et grâce à l'Europe, on voit que les hôpitaux ont beaucoup évolué, les soins de santé sont bien meilleurs. Donc je pense que c'est assez positif de ce point de vue-là et surtout les innovations sont partagées.
Ja, Europa geeft mij die veiligheid in vergelijking bijvoorbeeld met moest ik in de States wonen. Zou geen veilige plek zijn voor mij. Toch niet mensen die op mij gelijken. Laat me het maar zo zeggen. Ja.
Moi, je me sens en sécurité. Là, je fais les trajets France-Belgique tous les jours et je ne me pose pas la question de savoir si je peux me balader ou pas. Moi, je me sens en sécurité. Après, c'est vrai que peut-être dans certains endroits ou au soir, en tant que femme, je le ferai un peu moins, que ce soit en Europe ou ailleurs, mais je me sens en sécurité.
Ik vind dat een enorme mogelijkheid is voor politionele samenwerking om de veiligheid van de Europese burgers te garanderen.
L'Europe, c'est, comme je disais, du rêve. C'est un endroit où on a la chance de pouvoir exprimer beaucoup de choses, se réfugier. C'est pas encore parfait, mais je sens une volonté de s'améliorer de manière continue et j'ai envie de soutenir ça.
We've travelled quite a bit around Europe now, and every country it seems like everyone's kind of be themselves and act how they want to act. It's a lot more be respectful and be yourself, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You can be yourself in Europe, I think.
Be yourself.
Okay. So it's an invitation to all of you. Be yourself in the questions you want to ask. If you have any questions en français, Nederlands, Engels of Dutch. Commençons ici.
Ksenia Polska from Deutsche Welle. So it was very interesting to see what people think about Europe. I originally come from Ukraine, and I agree that Europe, well, it's a continent. Ukraine is also part of this continent, and Europe is also a dream that looks more and more fragile with so many threats looming right at its borders. Mm-hmm. You mentioned several times the necessity to keep supporting Ukraine, but how much is that of a priority to you, considering that all of this, the safety, equal opportunities, the dream could be impossible with so many threats to the democracy and literal security? How do you see the future dynamic of supporting Ukraine, which seems to have been lost a little bit in the recent month? And what is your concept of future support to Ukraine and resisting the Russian aggression, which is hybrid in many forms and also against the European Union? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. First of all, when you say that the support for Ukraine is lost, I don't agree with that. That's not what I see. What I see is that the support for Ukraine is there. And yes, there is a summit next week where spectators say it's going to be a 10th summit. But we've had summits like that before. And as a European Union, in difficult times, and I've seen this just the last 3 years on the first row, we've never failed. And the support for Ukraine will be unwavering, will be continued on many dimensions, on the military support, on the financial support. We know that the European Commission is coming with a recommendation on the enlargement process, with a clear recommendation on Ukraine and Moldova and on other countries. And to me, that's the direction that we should follow. And we are all working on building that unity throughout European countries. But you touched on a broader topic. You touched on the value of democracy and the fact that it is under threat. It is under threat, and it's not the first time that it has been under threat. And I think what all of us should understand is that it's a daily endeavor, and it's an assignment not only to us politicians, it's an assignment to all of us to understand that democracy is definitely not the easiest route. And democracy functions on the fact that there are different opinions, and that different opinions can collide one with another, but in respect and only in words. And different opinions, it's what drives innovation, and it's what drives progress. And I think we need to explain that better. Some people try to say that in difficult times, things are easier if we think all alike and if we are only surrounded with people with the same ideas. And I think it's exactly the opposite. The fact that we are, and I think in some of the little clips, what you saw is that someone, I think the Australian said, Europe is a place where everyone can be who they want to be. I think that's really what we are. And protecting diversity and protecting minorities, I think, is one of the things that the European Union has done extremely well, and I think we don't say it often enough. We support the aspirations of Ukraine. Our support will continue on many dimensions, and we really applaud all the incredible reforms that have taken place in Ukraine and also in Moldova over the past months in extremely difficult circumstances. But yes, I agree, it's an important moment, and I think the choice we make next week is a decisive one. It pushes the European Union in a certain direction. That is why one of our priorities is to prepare a common future with a European Union that can act in a decisive way, and that can act in unity. And we've given countries that look at the European Union a list of homework. But we also have to do our homework. And we 27 have quite a lot of homework to do to be sure that when you are ready, we will be ready as well. Next question. Wow. How do we do this? Let's start there.
Thank you. Robert Hodgson from Euronews. I'd like to ask about environment policy, if I may. You restated in an interview this week that you're in favour of a pause on all non-climate environment policy. And yet the programme I have in my hand here says that you intend to continue working on all Green Deal objectives, and it lists a number of policy files like air quality, wastewater, packaging waste. Can you give me some idea where you stand on this and what the priorities of the presidency are going to be? Do you have any concrete objectives in non-climate environment policy?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think if you quote me, let's quote it correctly. I don't think I said there should be a pause. What I said is that the Green Deal is a good package of legislation. And you know, we as Europeans, I think in general we regulate quite well. And often other places in the world copy the regulation that we make. The fact that we do it well often pushes us to regulate a lot, if you compare to other places in the world. But I think that the Green Deal is a sound package of regulation. The question is, how do you achieve it? And there we will be working together with the European Commission on making the green agenda also a growth agenda. An agenda that leads to industrial activity, that keeps industrial activity here on the European continent. And there we need to work. And we need to enable our economy and our industry to help us in realizing the Green Deal objectives. And we've already started with that. One of the topics is deepening our internal market. Internal market, which was a great thing that Jacques Delors did, but that's 40 years ago. The world has changed quite a bit in 40 years. It was, I don't think Mr. Delors imagined that it would be for 27 countries. And I don't think he imagined that today we would be in a digital economy and in a world trade situation which has become way more geopolitical than we would have imagined. And we have asked, together with colleagues, previous Prime Minister Enrico Letta, to take that up and to do that work of how do we improve the internal market. That should be our priority. I know that on the short term we have allowed some derogations on state aid rules, but the real answer is making our market function better. That also means a capital market. That also means progress on the banking union. Today, European continent too often is a continent where innovation takes place. We are top of the world in so many domains on innovation. But the industrialization of that innovation very often is not happening in Europe because of the complexity that we have still in our single market, and because very often the financing is not on a European scale, and the access to financing is often in other places of the world. So, no doubt about it. Keep the ambition on what we have in the Green Deal, but enable our industry to be a partner in that. It's the source of prosperity, of job creation, but even for people who would not believe in that, it's the right thing for the world. The moment that industry leaves the European continent or the European Union, that's a bad thing for climate change around the world, because it would go at other places where the rules are less stringent. So it's to the benefit of everyone that European industry keeps active within the European Union. Okay, there. Yeah, there.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Just very briefly, it's Lisa O'Carroll from The Guardian. Just to come back to Ukraine, Hungary. Viktor Orban has given an interview in Paris this morning where he's absolutely insisting...
Who gave an interview, sorry?
Viktor Orban.
Oh, yes.
Has given it...
I could have known.
Has given an interview in Paris this morning insisting that he will block the opening of the negotiations on accession for Ukraine. What message do you think that will send out to the world if that happens next Friday? That's question number one. And number two, do you agree with the sanctions against settlers involved in the violence in Israel? Thank you, and the West Bank.
Well, first of all, I've been taught not to answer on if questions, you know, when we have different opinions, we need to talk, and I think it's often better to talk face to face than to talk in the press, through open letters and so on. So I know that you obviously love when we talk through the press, but in difficult circumstances, I think we need to talk one-on-one, and I know that Charles Michel and so many other colleagues are doing the necessary groundwork to have a productive council next week. As I said, I mean, we've had difficult ones being announced in the past, and we always found a solution. It's crucial that we continue our support to Ukraine on the financial and on the military side, and it's important that we give the right message on the European perspective that we can give to Ukraine. On violent settlers on the West Bank, the position of Belgium has been, since a few weeks already, that we want to block the access of violent convicted settlers to our territory. We now also have seen that State Secretary Blinken has taken that position as well. We have reached out to our American colleagues to see how we put that in practice, and it's one of the topics I think that we should discuss at the council next week. We are at an extremely delicate moment, and respect for human rights, respect for human lives, stopping the killing of innocent civilians should be a priority for everyone. And that is a message of solidarity and of human dignity that Pedro Sanchez and myself brought in the region last week. And I think that as European Union, there can be absolutely no doubt on that. Okay, since you have the microphone,
Thanks very much.
No choice.
Can you hear me? Finlay Duncan, also from DW. In a week that a Eurobarometer poll has shown that nearly 3/4 of Europeans aren't feeling good about their standard of living. In fact, 3/4 think it will go down next year. How concerned, firstly, are you about that? And also, how much is that reflected in your presidency priorities?
Did you say that? Could you repeat the first phrase, because I didn't get
Yes, a Eurobarometer survey this week was showing that nearly 3/4 of Europeans think their standard of living will decrease next year.
Mm-hmm.
How concerned are you about that? And also, how much is that reflected?
Well, of course, if you look back, we come out of a difficult period with a sequence of crises, and if you look forward, you see a lot of dark clouds. And I understand the doubt. That is why, in my introduction, I said what people are looking for is certainty and perspective. And more, in the search for certainty and perspective, they're looking at the European Union. I'm not saying that they're not looking at their member states, but they understand that in this very unstable world of today, you need friends. And you need friends that protect each other. And up to us to come with the right answers to that. But if you look at European Union in global, there's not so many domains where we are not one of the top performers. We are one of the most innovative continents in the world. We are a wealthy continent with a very high purchasing power. But we need to act maybe a bit more to the position that we have. In defending our interests, that means being more geopolitical, and I applaud the work that the European Commission has done over the past years to create this geopolitical perspective. Today, the European Union is a world power. We do not always act like a world power. And acting like a world power does not mean that we need to go like a bulldozer over the rest of the world. That's never who we are going to be. But defending the interests of the Europeans in a more assertive way, I think it's a priority, and it is part of the 3 priorities that we have put forward. First priority is protect our population. That means if you want to ensure a free movement within the European Union, it means that you also protect your outside borders. Strengthening our economy and preparing it for the green, just and digital transition. A strong economy is the best way to respond to the concern that 3/4 of the people have. And looking forward towards a maybe enlarged Europe is, we all know that stabilizing our neighbors is in the interest of our neighbors, but also the interest of the Europeans. I think the concern you put forward in the 3 elements that we put forward, we exactly capture that. Now it's up to us to deliver on that, of course. Yep, continue. Who has the microphone? Okay. Just give it there.
Premier ministre, Madame la ministre, je suis le correspondant de la division arabe News Channel. Je m'appelle Nouroudine Fridi. J'ai une question concernant la situation à Gaza. Il y a 2 jours, le secrétaire général, M. Antonio Guterres, a invoqué l'article 99 de la Charte des Nations Unies concernant la situation à Gaza qui devient problématique pour la sécurité dans le monde. Je voudrais savoir si vous partagez son constat, si la Belgique soutient toujours M. Guterres, et si essentiellement vous partagez son appel pour un cessez-du-feu humanitaire, et si la Belgique, le lundi, défendra une telle position. Deuxièmement, l'Espagne a exprimé sa volonté de reconnaître l'État palestinien. Certains États européens, autres, pourraient avoir une attitude positive concernant cette question. Quelle est l'approche de la Belgique concernant la reconnaissance de l'État palestinien? La Belgique est-elle capable de prendre ce pas avant disons, avant la fin du processus de paix. Je vous remercie.
Donc, concernant la déclaration d'Antonio Guterres, hier, je l'ai moi-même relayée, donc officiellement, et vous le savez, depuis le début de cette escalade de la violence, nous avons demandé un cessez-le-feu humanitaire, le respect du droit humanitaire, du droit international, la protection des populations civiles, aussi la libération des otages et le retour aux pourparlers, aux négociations pour atteindre une solution à deux États, avec bien sûr un État palestinien. Nous sommes actifs depuis 2-3 jours après. Je me suis rendue d'ailleurs dans la région du Golfe à une réunion Union européenne pays arabes du Golfe. Nous avons fait des déclarations communes. Nous avons voté en faveur de la résolution des Nations Unies déjà en octobre, la résolution jordanienne demandant un cessez-le-feu humanitaire. Donc nous n'allons pas changer de position. Au contraire, compte tenu de la détérioration de la situation sur place qui nous inquiète fortement. Nous avons envoyé d'ailleurs hier un premier vol contenant de l'aide humanitaire via le système BiFast, donc pour aider les populations de Gaza. Nous avons aussi augmenté notre contribution à la Cour pénale internationale de 5 millions pour permettre aux procureurs de mener toutes les enquêtes nécessaires pour établir les responsabilités et juger les coupables, juger les crimes éventuels de guerre qui auraient été commis. Et donc, oui, nous sommes actifs. Quand voilà, la sanction contre les colons, nous allons la mettre sur la table du Conseil Affaires étrangères pas plus tard que lundi. J'en ai déjà discuté. Je rentre là d'Allemagne où nous avons mené une mission d'État avec nos souverains. J'en ai parlé à mon homologue au niveau européen, au niveau Affaires étrangères. Et donc, je pense que nous allons voir comment techniquement nous pourrons implémenter cela, parce qu'il faut que ce soit évidemment cohérent avec l'espace Schengen. Et pour revenir à la question de la reconnaissance, en réalité, nous avons cela dans notre accord de gouvernement, la reconnaissance en temps utile d'un État palestinien. Alors bien sûr, il y a cette notion de temps utile. Je pense que pour l'instant, ce qui est urgent, c'est d'arriver à une désescalade, à aussi renforcer l'autorité palestinienne, à se poser la question de la gouvernance aussi de Gaza, comment permettre peut-être à l'autorité palestinienne de reprendre le pouvoir, l'économie de Gaza aussi. Voilà, toutes ces questions pratiques qui doivent être résolues et qui doivent aboutir, nous l'espérons. Nous serons vraiment actifs, puisque c'était une priorité pendant la présidence. Avant même, je veux dire, le 7 octobre, c'était une de mes priorités pendant la présidence, notre présidence du Conseil de l'Union européenne. Donc, ce le sera encore plus. Nous devions accueillir d'ailleurs l'initiative Peace Day Initiative lancée par l'Union européenne, la Ligue arabe, l'Arabie saoudite. Et donc, nous sommes prêts à accueillir toute forme d'initiative qui pourrait relancer le dialogue.
OK. Who's next? Oui, ici peut-être les deux.
Prime Minister Todd Buell from Law 360. I have some questions about the ECOFIN, the finance section here. In some of the tax policies that the presidency says they will promote, for example, the one against shell companies, Unshell, or the one to close the VAT gap, VAT in the digital age, or even also the energy tax directive have been, a couple of these have been discussed for quite some time, and I don't know if you can get into detail about how you want to bring these forward, and also just more broadly, do you think unanimity is the right way that the EU should be approaching these or agreeing to these tax files? Thank you.
Well, first on the topics you mentioned, we have an excellent Minister of Finance. Really ask him on the more general question. When we have a tendency when we say that we need to improve our decision-making and our priorities and our institutional functioning, the first thing that pops up is unanimity voting. And then the second thing that comes up is, do we need a commission with 27 commissioners? These are always the topics that come up. These are legitimate questions, but they're difficult. I have my opinion on that, but I think there are steps which are less conflictual and which can make us help to have great progress. But the general line for us is, how do we have a European Union that can decide in a swifter way, but keep its unity? That's what we want to achieve. I guess at some point we will have a discussion on unanimity voting, on where it applies, on if it is still necessary. But I would not reduce the third line on which we'll be working, which is the future functioning of the Union and the being fit for purpose of the Union for enlargement, really only reduce it to a unanimity voting discussion, because we can spend days on that and probably we won't be able to solve it. Yes. Yep, and then
thanks, Christian Andrew with Ends Europe. So I'd like to come back to the environmental priorities in the program, and with some rather technical questions on the. I mean, you mentioned that you will seek to finalize the carbon certification framework and the CO2 emission standards, but only advanced negotiations on other environmental files. I mean, can we take that as? Does it mean that you don't expect them to be finalized during the term, during the presidency? And also, you mentioned
you mean during the previous presidency, or? No,
during your presidency, of course.
Okay.
And also, I mean, you mentioned the continued discussions on the sustainable use of pesticides regulation, and do you expect this? Will you push for a adoption of this in the council? And how does this fit with your reorientation of the Green Deal priorities, as you mentioned earlier?
I didn't say that because everyone tries to imply in your questioning that I would be doubting on the Green Deal. That's not the case at all. The whole question is setting standards and setting objectives is great, but then we need to enable also on how to do it. And I think on how to do it, we have too often a tendency as regulators to set the objective and then also decide on how to do it. And I think on the how to do it, we have to be a bit more innovation-driven. And if you want to be innovation-driven, that's not something we're particularly good at. Legislators are not particularly good at managing and at deciding what will be the innovation. So being as strict as what we have on the objective, and I wouldn't take an inch away from that, but on how to achieve it, I think we have to be a bit more open and give more room for innovation. On the specific topics you asked, honestly speaking, that really is in the domain of my competence ministers. Yes.
David Abiyago from Argus Media, but also from API. A question on sanctions against Russia. We talked about the basic principles of protecting Ukraine, the EU and the future of Europe. But I mean, will you be up at night at 4 a.m. in the morning arguing with Viktor Orban about the 12 sanctions package, or is that something that our Spanish friends are going to deal with before the end of the year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that a next sanction package has been prepared. There are some very important elements in that sanction package. One of them, for example, is banning Russian diamonds from the G7 market. This is something that we've worked extremely hard on in the past months, because we want those diamonds to be out, but we want to do it in a way that it hurts Russia and it is not hurting us. And we've finally, together with the G7, came to an agreement that leads to traceability, and that is really going to be instrumental in making that industry a next step in being transparent. You know, our rotating presidency does not mean that we are the boss of the European Union. That's not how it works. We're a facilitator in this. We're a facilitator, and very often facilitating Charles Michel in his job. We will help in listening to the other 26 member states, and in trying to find the commonalities and trying to find common voices in that. There is a very important role for the President of the European Council, and I have absolutely no intention to take over that role. And over the past presidencies, there's always been a good balance between both, and we intend to respect that. Yes, continue. Mm-hmm.
Hello, Prime Minister Jorge Liboreiro, Euronews. I have more of a political question ahead of the European elections next year. We've seen the far right winning strength across Europe. In Germany, Austria, France, in Flanders, as you know, is polling very high. We see it's increasing in Romania and Portugal, and of course we saw what happened in the Netherlands recently with the victory of Geert Wilders. Do you feel that the pro-majority, the pro-European majority in the European Parliament could be at risk after the elections next year? And do you think the line between right-wing and far-right is becoming increasingly blurred? Thank you.
First of all, if you look in the Eurobarometers, you see that even in countries that try to position themselves as skeptical towards the European Union, their population is very pro-Europe. And what we see is that Europe used to go forward because we had visionary leaders that came with ideas that at first seemed very far-fetched, and they needed to convince the public of that. That was the case for a single market, that was the case for the single currency. Today, this has flipped around. It's not so much visionary leaders that come with border-moving ideas. It is the public that has a high expectation, and it's up to us to respond to that expectation. People in Europe today want the European Union that protects them, that decides faster, and that enables us to give them security, certainty, and perspective in a world that is more uncertain than it has ever been. That's what we need to do, and if we do that well, I'm convinced that you can get the public on the side of being positive about Europe. But that's a task for us as politicians. On the political perspective, on the far right and the right and so on, there's so many political scientists who have written great things about that. What matters to me is policy, is results, more results, less talking, and then we'll see what happens in the elections. Yes, continue. There.
Hi, this is Sadiva Rose from The National. It's an Arab media. You mentioned your statement with Pedro Sanchez in the Rafah border crossing about the need to stop killing innocent civilians in Gaza. I was just wondering if you could maybe clarify how your approach to the conflict will be different from the Spanish presidency, as we expect that it will continue throughout your presidency of the EU. And you also mentioned the issue of extremist settlers in the West Bank, but most human suffering is now in Gaza, not in the West Bank. Will you be pushing for other measures during your presidency against Israel or Israeli citizens? Thank you.
Regarding the position, the Spanish position, I think we are quite on the same line, even if there are differences. They have said that they are going to recognize the Palestinian state, but we have this in our agreement, government agreement, so I think it's quite the same position. And regarding the sanctions, as I told you, we are going to discuss about that in the near days. I think Monday, so I don't want to talk about that now. It's and as our Prime Minister just said, you know, to be the presidency of the Council of the European Union is to act as a honest broker, to facilitate. So we should be more restrained right now and to try to find common agreement between the 27.
But I hope no one is angry if we ask to stop the killing of innocent civilians. And I hope no one is angry if we say that. And I think that in the situation in which we are today, you need a ceasefire to enable humanitarian access and to liberate the hostages. That's what you need. And yes, I've been quite straightforward on that. And I'm more a human being than a politician. And I think humanity is important. Who else? Where's the microphone? Maybe go to the back.
Good morning, Katarzyna Szafariuka, Czech correspondent. I have a question on the famous EU reform. You yourself mentioned, Prime Minister, possible change of number of commissioners, unanimity voting, slash QMV. My question is, what does the Belgian presidency intend to do here? Do you intend to put on kind of like a roadmap so then we can actually go on and start a structured discussion in the topics? And if I may, a second question related to Belgian reality. As we all know that the Belgians are going to vote in the legislative elections also, together with the European ones. Can you tell us maybe to us foreign correspondents whether the electoral calendar of Belgian federal state will somehow influence or not the Belgian presidency? Thank you.
Well, first of all, yes, indeed. So our role is to make a roadmap, to identify what the topics could be, to make an agenda, and to really set that out for the next period to be able to conduct that discussion in the right way. It's correct to set the expectations. I mean, we're not in the next months going to solve all that. We don't have the mandate to do that either. Yes, there will be elections in Belgium on other elections than only the European one. We're not the only country in that situation. That's the case in other countries as well. Will that have an impact on the work we do in our European presidency? No. All right, let's go. No more questions? Or maybe a last? Let's do those two last, and then I think we have a reception, right? Very good.
Good morning, Sylvie Welravens from Tertio. It's not a technical question, it's more in general. What specific qualities or maybe unique assets does Belgium have to make this presidency a success? Can Belgium, being Belgium, make a difference?
Mm-hmm. You know the compromis à la Belge? Have you heard about it? So that's our secret.
And you know, it's the 13th time we've done this, so I think we have this in our fingers. I think in general we're better at finding solutions than at creating problems. Yeah. And this really is in our DNA. And I think Belgians from youth grow up with a multiplicity of opinions, of cultures, and of languages. And too often I've heard that it is a weakness. I disagree. I think it's one of the biggest strengths that we have, is that this is an incredibly multi-ID, multilingual, and multicultural country. And all of us understand that if you want to take good decisions, you need to listen to others, and taking a decision which takes into account the opinions of others leads to better decisions. It's not always the easiest route, that I agree, but it's the best route. Last question? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Most Appelot from the Brussels Times. We all got questions about Hungary, and as we know, they're supposed to take over the presidency.
Could you put the microphone a bit closer, please?
Okay, yes, about Hungary. We all got a question about that. I just wonder how difficult will it be for the Belgian presidency, let's say, to coordinate things with Hungary, who is supposed to take over the presidency after yours. As you said, I mean, being let's say, holding the presidency is a matter of facilitating the EU decision process and so on. But it could be difficult with Hungary. For example, are you going to push forward the proceedings against Hungary when it comes to the rule of law on Article 7, for example? And will you try, let's say, not to leave any unfinished business for Hungary after you have finished your presidency?
Well, yes, Hungary will be the next presidency, and
trio.
Yeah, we work in a trio. I mean, that's honestly, to me, it's a presidency like any others, and we need to stop labeling countries one way or another. Everyone has a right to presidency, and I'm sure they will manage it in a good way in the interests of all Europeans. That is what is expected from a European presidency. And Hadja, maybe you can explain.
Yes, and we will have hearings on Article 7, I mean, during our presidency, so that's not a problem. We will continue our job.
Okay, good, thank you. And you're all invited to a reception.